It's hard because investors want repeatable forecasts. They want legacy SaaS licensing, and that's not in the best interest of the client typically, right? So I have 100 people with licenses. That doesn't mean I'm getting any value out of it. What translates into value is outcomes that drive decisions at the customer. So am I getting new customers? Am I cross-selling? So I think that aligning with customers directly with value is going to make it a lot easier to sell. I was doing a presentation to a customer and they said to me, "Thank you for coming in prepared. You were the most prepared person that has ever come in to talk to us."
I love
and
that.
then I thought, okay, what did I do? I read their annual report and I looked up everyone in the meeting on LinkedIn. That's it. That was the most prepared. People are not preparing. Your competition is not preparing. And now I can use ChatGPT. I can get a 20-page dossier on pretty much any company I want instantaneously. If you're not doing that, you're nuts.
Welcome to Hold the Churn, the show where we go behind the scenes with the sharpest minds in all things go-to-market and revenue to decode what's changing, what's timeless, and what's actually driving growth in 2025 and beyond. I'm Chandrika, co-founder and CEO of Quibbly AI. Quick plug for those of you who don't know Quibbly, we're a post-sales agent and data enrichment platform. We help you identify and act on signals to expand and retain existing customers. And I'm thrilled to kick off our very first episode with someone who's been a part of and led revenue teams at some of the most instrumental B2B software companies over the last few decades. Terry, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on today. Looking at your career arc, Terry, you've been in revenue roles for the last few decades, seen multiple market cycles, taken companies through massive exits like eFund's $1.8 billion sale to FIS, and now you're a CRO at Informed, an LP, and an advisor to early-stage founders. That's a pretty unique vantage point on how B2B revenue has evolved. So let's zoom way out to the start. You've watched these revenue teams evolve over time. What's the one thing that's fundamentally changed about how revenue is approached, and what's one thing that's stubbornly stayed the same?
Yeah, this is a good question. I mean, my career, there was no revenue team until fairly recently, maybe 5 or 10 years. And if you talk to enough B2B teams, which is my background, so I can't really speak to B2C, which sometimes have a chief commercial officer or other titles, it's a reasonably new phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think it's important because, especially in the SaaS world, or more importantly, even in the world of usage-based consumption or consumption-based revenue, the entire ecosystem, the entire spectrum from lead to renewal, invoicing, upsell, cross-sell is all about revenue. And if you don't have kind of a straight-through process, you're going to have leakage and you're not going to be optimized. We weren't smart enough to realize that in the beginning. We had sales VPs and marketing VPs and customer success VPs, and we were lucky if sales and marketing even talked to each other. Like I remember all the articles about how can you get sales and marketing on the same page, right? And you'd have sales ops, which was operations about sales, the process of selling, but it wasn't revenue ops. It really wasn't looking at collections and invoicing and leakage that can happen post-sale. So I think it's good where we're going. We're not there yet. You and I are talking about it, but there's a lot of people out there that don't think this way.
Yeah.
And I talk to companies that still ask, should we be hiring a CRO? And it's not always the right answer to hire a CRO, but at least people are starting to ask that question. So I think that's changed dramatically in my career. If you've just started selling in the last 5 or 10 years, you might think of me as crazy. What do you mean? There's always been revenue. The thing that hasn't changed is if you think about what revenue is, again, it's that end-to-end process. And if you don't have definitions of those flows in that process, then you really can't hold people accountable. Your dashboards, your metrics are no good. And I'm shocked, my background is primarily in sales, but I bet it's similar in marketing and customer success, is companies today still don't have standard processes. You say, hey, do you have a sales process? Yes, we use Sandler, whatever. And I have a Sandler book right in front of me. But they don't really use it. They've read the book. They may make some suggestions that are from Sandler, but they haven't taken a process and really vetted it against their buyer process.
Yeah.
So these are standard sales processes that are out of the box.
Yeah.
And if you don't customize them to your buyer journey, they may actually do more harm than good. And then you have to train your reps and really most of your company on what the process is.
Right.
What do the words mean? What's stage 2 mean? If I said to my head of delivery, I have 3 deals in stage 5, is that the middle of it, middle of a 10 thing process, or is that the end? Like, you have to train everyone and have like a common language. And you really have to hold people accountable, and you have to inspect deals all the way up to, from the CEO to the rep should understand what that process is. So I think that while there's still companies that are getting under the revenue train, there's still companies that aren't on the process train. And I'm not so sure it matters what your process is. Like, I've used multiple ones. But I think that using a process probably gets you 80% there, using it correctly. So I wouldn't worry about, if I'm this or that. And there's a lot of good reasons to use different ones. But I look at it as like a diet. If I cut out sugar, I'm going to lose weight. Does it matter if I'm a vegan or a vegetarian or going keto? Probably a little bit at the margin, it's going to matter. And then there's other things that those diets can impact other than just losing weight. But at the end of the day, just cut out sugar and processed food and you're good to go. Right? And that's what sales is about. Just have a process, define it, share it, use it, and you're probably ahead of 80% of your competitors.
I love that analogy. There's so much to dig into there, Terry. The first thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned, a CRO is not always necessary. It's not always the right thing. It's not always the right role. What are those cases when you think companies should have a head of sales instead of a chief revenue officer, or when should they start thinking about revenue as a whole, as an umbrella on top of sales, marketing, customer success, revenue operations versus individual sort of teams?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting subject. I'm not sure I've worked at a place where it wouldn't make sense because I've been very B2B software, SaaS kind of AI. But if you have a product-led sale and it's doing very, very well in the market on its own, and you're doing some marketing and then people are buying it directly without sales help, do you need a chief revenue officer? Maybe it's a chief marketing officer. Maybe you don't need a chief revenue officer because there's not as much of the different modules as there is in my world. In my world, selling and customer success are very, very complementary, but they're different. And then marketing as well. And if one person isn't kind of responsible for that, and theoretically it could be a CEO. If you have a sales-driven CEO that doesn't focus a lot of time on product and engineering, in my experience, most of my CEOs have been product and engineering focused. But if you had a sales-focused CEO, a CRO may be less important because they're going to want to do those things. So there's, again, case-by-case basis. But if you're in B2B and you have a strong direct sales motion, you may also have a strong indirect sales motion, which is another thing to manage.
Right.
Then you have marketing, and then you have different kinds of marketing, account-based marketing, or are you big brand, or are you spending on advertising? And then you've got customer success. That really needs to be connected in the modern world. In the modern world, I think it does. And you can even buy systems now out there that kind of bring, I think they call it revenue orchestration now, right? There's a different word. So, I think that there's definitely reasons not to have a CRO, but don't just say, hey, like it's, we got to keep up with the Joneses. Just like when you're selling, what is the goal? What is your problem? Is your problem that disconnected revenue leakage?
Yeah.
One of the problems my company has that you and I have talked to about in the past is we're very consumption, usage driven. Sometimes we have a minimum or a platform fee, but by and large it's usage, and there's a lot of leakage there, right? How do you define the things that you pay for in a package that comes through an API? Or is there more than one API, right? So if you don't have a finger on the pulse, and if the person who sold the deal is not really talking to the person who's managing the deal, you're going to lose. You lose at least time, if not revenue.
Yeah. Now, I can talk all day about usage, consumption-based pricing, and the things that, we need to do to make that shift smoother for organizations. But I wanted to dig into one more thing you mentioned in the previous response around process. Most early stage companies, especially, shy away from process. They think of process as this word that they want to sort of, run away from. Oh, when you're becoming a process-oriented company, you are becoming this large setup where things need to go through this bureaucratic, step-by-step red tape process. When do you think process really becomes important in a company's journey? Because especially from your perspective, you've been a part of small early stage startups. You've been a part of large organizations like IBM. when do you think process makes the most sense to introduce into the organization?
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of process for process sake. I used to say to people, they say, how do you know when to leave a startup and go to another one? It's like when they make me use a corporate credit card. Once they've had enough time to kind of standardize, procurement and things like that, and they want to give me one of those ramp cards or whatever they call them these days, I'm like, I'm out. That means there's just too much time to focus on the back office. So that's like an early indicator for me. Only half jokingly, but process is not a bad word. You don't want to overdo the process.
Right.
And you can start out, like, for example, when you qualify a deal, you can start out with BAM, right? And budget, authority, need, timing, pretty simple. Maybe you're doing it a founder sale, and founder sale is going to be a little bit lighter on process.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a qualifications, kind of a two-way street. You're going to be a little bit easier on your contract, term for convenience, maybe no minimums. So that's a different sale than, let's call it a professional enterprise sale, whether it's one person or 10. They need a process to sell by, and you can't sell into an enterprise without a process. It doesn't mean it has to be a spreadsheet with 8 tabs, but it should have 5 or 6 stages that are well-defined, that are driven by counterparty activity. What are they doing? Not what am I doing? And that's enough, right? And then later you can start looking at MedPick and MedPick R and different ways to qualify in heavy complexity accounts.
Yeah.
But baby steps.
Yeah.
It's easier to get started with baby steps and move forward than it is to get way ahead and then try to retrofit.
Yeah.
That's very, very difficult. So again, don't overdo it, but you can have a little process. Certainly when you're changing from founder sale to, I'll call it professional sales, not that the founder's not a professional, but when you're hiring someone that is a salesperson full time,
right?
They should have process. And also, how do you communicate with your CEO if you don't have a process? It's like, hey, how's that deal looking? Looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, you think it will close soon? Oh yeah. It's like, that can't last very long, right? You're running a startup. At some point people who invest in you want to know, well, it's going to kind of close someday, or how about give me a forecast? How about how many deals you're going to close this month, right? It's July 3rd. What can you do for me in the next 27 days, right? That starts to happen. So you have to have some kind of process just to be able to communicate.
Yep.
But don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. And don't do it for process sake. Another great example is trying to mandate how much money you can spend for travel, right? When you're young and few people, we're all, my experiences, we're all very in it to win it. We're part of the family, and we're spending the money as if it were our own. We're staying at cheaper hotels. We're not eating in fancy meals unless a client is there. But when you have 100 salespeople, you're going to have some bad actors. So now you have to limit people. And then when I was at IBM, they would limit you, your card would shut off. It was very, very well orchestrated to save money. Yeah. And that's important when you're Intel or IBM or FIS. But when you're Quively or Informed, you can be a little bit more open. And it actually just tends to piss off salespeople. Which you're trying to avoid, right? I mean, in my opinion, and I am a salesperson or have been, I think you should overcompensate early stage salespeople because they are fighting a different war than someone at Oracle or IBM that's selling something that's easily repeatable, well documented, lots of references. Newer salespeople, Informed's probably a little bit past there, but when I first got here, we were in the trenches, and I think you should take good care of your folks in the trenches, and then you can get standardized as you move along. Comp plans are another great example. They should be simple and easy, and they should kind of lean into the salesperson. And you're like, oh, I don't want to overpay them. It's like, well, I think it's interesting. Founders often undervalue sales, and not in Informed, but I've had other places where I've come in and founder sales have been, I've sold a lot. It's like, okay, and I look at the contracts. There's all termination for convenience, no minimums, nothing, no commitments, no SLA. It's like, not sure I would call that sales. That might be giving. I don't know what I would call that. But you have to learn that if you want those things, take an effort.
Yeah. Giving versus selling. That's an interesting thing.
Well, and you've experienced it as well. If you don't have product market fit, or if you don't have a couple of great references, then it's a little quid pro quo. Like, let's work together and see, let's get to a win-win. Yeah. But if I show you the value that we're talking about, then you're gonna sign a real contract or give me a reference or do a press release or whatever you're looking for.
Well, you've set me up really well for a question that's been top of mind for me. That's been something that I've wanted to ask you. So we've talked about founder-led sales. What's your read on these younger AI startups? I say younger AI startups. We're less than a year old ourselves, who've raised millions of dollars, but haven't really nailed the basics of enterprise sales, in your opinion? Or what are these well-funded younger teams getting wrong about enterprise sales, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know any specifically that are getting things wrong, so I'm just going to kind of estimate, kind of guess. And it's not just AI. There's different startups every 2 or 3 years. I remember when we were moving away from mainframe, right? And that was a big deal, right? I remember the end of the millennium when that was a big deal, right? That was what everyone was buying. And then I started an internet company in 1999, and then there was the internet, bust in 2001. So these are just cycles. It's not just AI, it's just the new word. But what is easy for people to do is get away from fundamentals. And everybody wants to think that now it's easier. I can use an AI tool. I can use this other thing, and I can accelerate reality. And the reality is people buy things from people that they like, people that they trust.
Yep.
And they also have their own agenda that they want to be addressed, whether that be personal or professional. And you need to get to know the people. You need to add value to that relationship, to sell. You need to listen. Like if I were going back, if any salesperson, and I mentor a few who are in their 20s, give or take, and what's the secret to selling? Counterintuitively, it's shut up and listen, especially early. You should be like 80% them in the beginning. And there has to be, you have to keep that conversation going. You can't just sit there and do nothing. You can ask questions. And I used to tell people, ask 7 questions before you can talk, other than a question. Before you can say anything, I want you to ask 7 questions. And then you can listen, you can watch them squirming, trying to come up with 7. It's so unnatural for people. And now I don't even have to listen. I can go into Gong or one of those and it will literally give me a little meter. Like Terry spoke 40% of the time. That's a win. Spoke 80% of the time. It better be a demo.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you shouldn't be doing that, right? So if you listen and you understand your market and ask the right questions, you will learn everything you need to learn to sell.
Yeah.
If you don't, and you just talk about your solution right off the bat. I mean, I haven't dated in a while, but if you think about dating, if you walk up to someone and you say hello and then for 20 minutes you talk about yourself, that's likely not to go too well, right? So it's the same. People are the same, whether they're dating or buying software, they want to be heard. They want to be understood. So that's the key, right? And I think that especially with AI, you're not even talking to a human. Who's listening? Who's even listening? What are the parameters that the AI is set to think is important? Likely, you grew up in Detroit and are a Detroit Lions fan doesn't make the top. But it's an important thing to understand, especially because I happen to have grown up in Detroit and am a Detroit Lions fan. So this is something where we can build some rapport. That doesn't happen with AI. Maybe someday your AI and my AI are going to build rapport. But hopefully I'll be retired by then.
I mean, I don't know how far that day is. It's probably coming sooner than we think.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like our agents, and don't get me wrong, I don't think agents are bad. Like I like to do research on products on the weekend. So if I have a very
You've been vibe coding, Terry?
What's that?
Have you been vibe coding at all?
No. I'm beyond that. But if I wanted to find out about Quivly and it's the weekend, you and I have spoken. I have a couple questions. I could send you an email and hear back on Monday. Or maybe I could go to your website and go to an agent and just ask technical questions like, what's your technical stack? Can I have documentation for this API? And that could be answered. That would continue the sales process in that case. And so that probably is fine. But for me, I think AI for now is really just more of a force multiplier. It's helping me do more. It's not doing things for me yet, other than behind the scenes things like prep for a call. What's my target list? How can I define parameters for a target list of who I want to go after? And listening to the conversations and maybe creating red flags. And I don't know, is there a blue flag for a buying signal? Like, everyone talks about red flags, but there's also buy signals that we should be open to too. So I'm going to call those. I'm coining that here. That's a blue flag.
Blue flag.
We got red flags. We got blue flags.
Trademark. Sorry.
Yeah, trademark, right? And I want to know those, because if I have a sales rep that is shy and not very aggressive, and there are blue flags on the ground, like, dude, you need to ask for this order. You need to create a proposal. If there's red flags, like, you need to talk to somebody. You're leaving somebody out of your process, or whatever the case may be. All that coaching is so much easier now. It used to be, I literally had to be hiding on the phone, on mute, trying to listen to you do a call. And of course, the calls I'm listening to, you're going to act differently. With Gong, you can't really do that because it's every call, right? So there's definitely some AI tools that make selling easier and more efficient, but I'm not pushing those tools out to the front yet, except for in the use case I just said, answering kind of late stage technical questions. When people want them answered, and maybe it's 2 a.m. That's when your CEO has time to research your product, and you better be there, right?
We think about blue flags a lot ourselves, because we focus a lot on where are those blue flags in terms of existing customers telling you they're not satisfied with the product, or they're finding a lot of value in the product, hence they're using more of it or less of it. And how do you think about when they are ripe for cross-selling a certain product, when they are ripe for expansion, when they're ripe for upgrading onto a higher tier plan? So I love that framework of blue flags.
Absolutely, and it's important with cross-sell and upsell and renewals. What are you hearing? Someone told me the other day that they track. It's an analytics platform. They track who uses the platform. So I'm signed in. I'm using it.
Right.
But then the question was, wait a minute. The C-suite doesn't use it. They get emails. Usually they're reports. Are they looking at those reports? Are they using those reports? That's not something that's easy to track. But it might be the most important metric you have. So you still kind of have to think out of the box.
Absolutely.
And things like other things are really kind of signal versus noise, which are hard to do without AI. But for example, Gong has done some research and depending on how fast or how easy it is to calendar the next meeting, if as you go through the sales cycle, it should get faster and easier. And if it doesn't, you're likely losing it to a competitor.
Right.
But it never occurred to me. I always I have a sense of urgency. Hey, we got to get that meeting. Why are we waiting? But they've literally
quantified it.
And they can because they see all that information. And I never would have thought about it. And even talking about competitors late stage is actually potentially a good thing, not a bad thing. So anyway, these are red and blue flags that we didn't even know existed. That are now being uncovered by AI.
Well, I think pre-AI, there used to be a lot of cobbled together spreadsheets across different data sources that are fragmented, that the keys to each of those data sources are held by different teams, different people. And to a large extent, I think a lot of companies are still doing that. A lot of companies are still sort of, figuring out how can we internally build this dashboard that can show us this view and help us identify these signals. And often it's like the build versus buy conversation that we get into, especially because it's like, hey, but we have built this Tableau or Looker or Power BI dashboard that we're attached to. And for us, it's like, yeah, sure, your dashboard, shows you a few signals, but it doesn't go beyond that. It doesn't tell you what exactly do you need to do to act on those signals now and to convert them into actual revenue dollars.
And you can't aggregate a marketplace. So if you have 1,000 customers that use Quively and you see signals across those 1,000, it doesn't matter how great your customer or your prospect is at building, they're never going to see any other data. They're only going to see their own data. They're never going to have enough to make a difference. So to me,
Gong is a Gong today, and they've been able to uncover those insights because they have hundreds of thousands of customers now.
Exactly. Obviously I'm biased because I'm in revenue and sales, but if it doesn't add value to your end product, you shouldn't build it. That's my opinion, but obviously biased.
No, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that framework. Jeff Bezos has this very famous quote. I don't know who originally said it, but it's attributed to him often. It's focus on what makes your beer taste better. And it comes from the time when breweries in Germany used to actually make their own electricity before the grid system came into existence. And that's how the grid system was born, apparently, because They were like, why are we generating our own electricity? It's not making our beer taste any better. So let's focus on the things that make our beer taste better, and let's outsource
Absolutely.
give these
Absolutely.
things that are not our core competencies.
That's a great quote. I don't drink much beer anymore, so I'm going to say I focus on what makes your coffee tastes better.
There we go.
That's something I do focus on. Perhaps too much.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit to what's coming ahead, Terry. What do you think most revenue leaders are not paying enough attention to that's coming in the next 24 months?
Yeah. So again, I'm a bit biased because of my current company, Informed, but I believe that usage, consumption, outcome-based pricing is the future. That's what we do. That's what big folks like Snowflake and others are migrating to. And I get it. It's hard because investors want repeatable forecasts. They want licenses, legacy SaaS licensing, and that's not in the best interest of the client typically, right? So if I'm going to use a database like Snowflake and I have 100 people with licenses, that doesn't mean I'm getting any value out of it. What translates into value is outcomes that drive decisions at the customer. So am I getting new customers? Am I cross-selling? Am I doing whatever the case may be? So I think that aligning with customers directly with value is going to make it a lot easier to sell and a lot harder to manage for the vendor, because it's going to be up and down. And we service lenders, and the amount of loans that a lender makes every month is variable. It's driven by interest rates. It's driven by tariffs. It's driven by a lot of different things, unemployment. So it's hard for them to forecast, so they don't want to make commitments. But if I could say to every one of my customers, hey, just turn it on and start using it.
Yeah.
It would be a lot easier. But what would I tell my board? It's like, okay, well, we signed on 50 new customers last month. Great. What are they going to do next month? No clue. But probably more than if I didn't sign the 50 customers. And so how do you, it's going to be folks like you trying to figure out how to monetize, how to understand, how to report on consumption and usage in a way that an investor will recognize. And it's not easy, because I think about it a lot. Even in my own little world, I'm trying to, if I have a minimum, but then there's the usage over it like this.
Yeah.
That's hard to forecast. It's hard to commit to. And also it allows for leakage, which is another problem, right? When you have that variability, are you even charging them the right price for the right thing?
Yeah. The big trade-off we think about often is, with usage-based, consumption-based, or pay-as-you-go type pricing, there's a low barrier to entry for customers, and they can truly experience your product before committing to, hundreds of thousands of dollars in ACV or $1 million contracts that they would sign eventually.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is lack of predictability for both parties, right? So you have lack of predictability in terms of how much they're going to spend, and then they, as customers, also don't want to be surprised at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter because they're now slapped with a $10,000 bill when they expected it to be only $3,000. Yeah. And so that's the sort of, pros and cons or trade-offs we see often companies trying to make sense. And usage consumption-based pricing is not always the best for every type of business model. So what we're seeing more and more is it's shaking out to be more of a hybrid, where there's a component of, a fixed license fee or a platform fee, and then there's a large component of consumption on top of it, which is very similar to how you all have been thinking about at Informed.
Yeah. And that's probably, that's certainly the way forward.
Yeah.
Because there isn't any other choice. But it will be interesting how it falls out.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of companies that are moving there.
Yeah.
And somehow we need to manage that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of what we've been talking about is sort of in the zone of customer empathy. So my next question was going to be around that, which is how do you as a revenue leader build real customer empathy and train your teams to do that and keep a pulse on whether your customers are finding value in the product or not? Yeah,
it's a simple answer, but it's not easy. And it goes back to listening. If you let people tell you what they're focused on, and we all have personal wins, like I may get a bonus or a promotion, and then we have company or team wins, which might be make more loans with less fraud, right? So understand what they value. And often the challenge, especially with a newer company, is they don't know the metrics that they need to know. So you have to help them and help them understand what they should be tracking and how you can improve that. Work with them, hold their hands, and you can't get upset with them. It's like, well, someone I will not name that worked with me in a previous life said the customer just doesn't know what they're doing. It's like, well, then either we need to fire them or we need to coach them so that they do know what they're doing, right? Because it's a customer, there's only so many. Like, we can't afford to tell them to take a hike. So if they're qualified, that's the other problem, right? Yep. You got to have an ICP with proven value. And if you do that over and over again, then you're likely to have a strong customer success motion. If you're getting a bunch of inbound leads or trying to sell to whoever comes in the door, then that's going to pay dues in churn, contraction, customer success problems, because you're all over the map. Just try to stay very focused. I know it's difficult, especially in the beginning, but the reason most people don't focus is because they haven't done the work trying to create a pipeline within their ICP and where it matters. So focus there, build a big pipeline, you'll hit your goals, and you won't be thinking about, oh, well, this great little bright object that just came in an inbound lead, like, you know what, that's not for us.
Yeah.
And you have to have that discipline in order to do really well in the back end of the revenue process. But I mean, ultimately, listen and understand. And one of the big things I say is, when you're speaking, you shouldn't be like preloading your response. That's what most people do. I'm listening to you, and I'm ready, and I do it probably more than most. I'm ready with my comeback. But challenge yourself. That comeback should be a question, not a statement. Right. So listen with the intent of asking a question, not of, I did better than that, or, in my experience, that doesn't happen, or, you might be right, but I don't know that it helps you sell or understand or be empathetic. Yeah. And the biggest thing I tell people is help people where it's not going to matter to you. Right? And that can happen in business. It happens all the time. Oh, my daughter, wants to be an actor. Oh, I have a nephew who's an actor. Maybe I can connect him. My son is going to Boston. Oh, let me make sure he gets into a great restaurant. Yeah. It takes little time, little effort, but people really, really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And that can create lifelong connections. Like, I've been in the business long enough. I know people that have moved all around. I'm still in touch. I mentor and have hired children of people that I've mentored and hired 20 years ago. So that to me is how you really can build empathy and build customers. And it's all the same, because your employees and your customers and your prospects have one thing in common. They're humans. And they have the same feelings that you and I do. So treat them like that, right? And then I think you'll do pretty well.
Curiosity is so important for developing customer empathy, asking questions, as you said, right?
Yeah.
And just approaching.
That's my big ones for hiring. Curiosity, coachable, work ethic.
Yep. And as you said, like, not preloading that response and thinking about, oh, this person said this, so now I'm going to stick to this sort of this, one point, and I have my comeback ready. I'm not listening to the rest of the thing that they're saying. I'm already working on how I deliver my response to them.
Yeah, it's the algorithm. It's just like social media algorithm, except it's in our head. It's ready. If this, then that. Yeah. But wait a minute, break that down. Listen, ask a question. Listen, ask the question. You'll be surprised. You might learn something. Yeah.
And I mean, helping outside of business context or, adding value goes such a long way. Some of the best early stage founders that I see and interact with are the ones that go above and beyond and help out their customers outside of the business context as well. It's not just, hey, this is a transactional thing, you are helping me and I'm helping you solve this very specific problem, but let's talk like humans, as you said. You at the end of the day, the people who are in that screen, in that little square on your Zoom call, are still humans, and they are looking for the same sort of response from you as they would from anyone.
Absolutely. And and it's also the network effect. I think most of the positive things that come from your network don't come from your direct network, but 1 degree away. Yeah. And you never know where that's going to be. right?
Right.
So help people out. In my generation, I'm more than likely helping my friends' kids get jobs, right? And I do that, and also I like talking to new salespeople and new marketing people. They have ideas. I don't know everything. I want to learn, and that's another one you should add to your curiosity is a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
Like what's the last book you read? Have you taken an online class lately? Like they're free.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you have done that?
Yeah.
Right? And if people like, I haven't read a book, I haven't taken an online class.
Yeah.
I just go to the gym and watch TV. It's like, interesting, but maybe not right for sales.
Yeah. These are some great pointers for hiring. So I hope listeners are making notes and asking these questions for when they bring on people to their teams.
Yeah, and full disclosure, there's a guy named Mark Roberg who I've known for a while that was I think the first CRO, first head of sales at HubSpot. He's now at Stage 2 Capital. He wrote a book, I think it's called Sales Acceleration or something close to that. And he said 3 things: hire right, train, hold them accountable. And there's your 3-legged stool to success.
Yeah.
So I didn't make it up, but you still have to execute on it. Hire the right person, have them be curious and a lifelong learner, work ethic, and then train them on that process we talked about.
Yeah.
A little bit of process in the beginning, more process later, and then hold them accountable and inspect their calls and their CRM systems and their emails and make sure that you're all aligned with the same mission and the same process. And if you do those 3 things, I would be shocked if you weren't really successful. Yeah. Maybe not as successful as HubSpot, but still pretty successful.
Mark's awesome. He's written some awesome books on sales. So if you're listening and you want to learn more about the processes, how do you think about bringing on the A-star players onto your team, go check out that book. Now, Terry, trying to, sort of bring it home a little bit and wrap it up. So let's first talk about, how do you think about saying no to customers, right? So we talked about customer empathy and trying to figure out whether your customers are finding value in the product. How do you qualify them at the beginning? So when you're in hypergrowth, especially when there's pressure from investors and you're not just thinking about who loves the product, you're deciding who not to sell to as well. How do you decide which deals to say no to, especially when investors want all that top line growth?
Yeah, so you need to have your initial kind of ICP and product market fit. There was a book called Crossing the Chasm all about how to do that. That's a little old at this point, but you really need to stay focused on that. And once and actually Mark Roberge wrote, I think it's a white paper on this, but you get product market fit and then you get go to market fit and then you scale.
Yeah.
Right. So once you have product, where I typically have gotten engaged was post product market fit. Now let's figure out and scale the go-to-market team. And then when you get that last scale, that's when they make you use the corporate credit card. And that's when I go back back and reboot, right? Yeah. How do you say no? Well, you should have a pretty strict process around your product. And for example, if you don't have a reference, you shouldn't probably sell it. Now that's not going to count early on when you're still trying to get product market fit. Yeah. But once you have product market fit, let's just say I have 5 clients. I've got the 6th client, but none of my current references are relevant. It's like, why is that? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's this kind of new thing. It's tangential to what we do. It's kind of an adjacent market. And that's when I would get nervous when they start hearing words like adjacent and tangential, because what they mean is they've got something new that's not really what you have. But they want to make their commission, right? So first of all, if your marketing team or your sales team, whoever's building pipeline, has enough pipeline focused on your ICP, then they will not look at things that are adjacent because they're harder to sell. They're going to sell the stuff that they know they can sell that has references and one-pagers and demos and all that right down in the middle.
Yeah.
But if you're a smaller company, you can't maybe get to where you want to be with one use case or 2. So what I've tried to do is maybe have like a biz dev team, not on quota, more of a bonus, and let them play around in those newer categories, work with the product team, see what the impact would be, the cost, and that way your salespeople are just doing that repeatable process, and then somebody else, maybe it's the CEO, maybe it's biz dev, whoever you want to call it, is kind of looking into the future. but they don't have the same constraints that a sales team has.
Yeah.
And they're not bothering the sales team, which really needs to keep their head down. And then something comes in that's adjacent, it just goes to that team. The sales team doesn't do it at all. So to me, that's how you have to keep your focus. And it's hard to say no, but not having a reference, if I can't point to an existing client that does the same thing, that's an easy way to say no. Because it's a slippery slope. Well, if we just did this one thing, or if we just brought in this one partner, we'd have that solution. It's like, I'm sure we would. And then we can say, but could we resell that new thing?
Yeah.
All right. And then they come up with some impossible TAM or SAM, and now we've got the new thing and nobody wants it and we're supporting it, and it's a slippery slope. So
Yeah.
you got to focus on building that standard pipeline, because otherwise it's just too easy. Just like, oh, I haven't quite made my quota.
Yeah.
Sure would love to bring this adjacent thing on. Woo. And someone's got to say no, right? That should be your VP of sales. VP of sales is, maybe makes a case to the executive committee, but it shouldn't be the commission-driven team making decisions on new product stuff.
That discipline is so important, because even as an early stage startup, if you are trying to figure out if you should be entering an adjacent market or solving a tangential problem, I think it's so important to time box that experiment and figure out, okay, I'm curious about this thing. I'm an early stage startup. I'm trying to figure out if this solution that we've created for this problem also exists in market A, B, or C, making sure that you have 30 to 60 days of time that you've carved out to be like, here are the things that I'm going to do. Here are the experiments I'm going to run, and these are the results I'm going to look at to decide whether it's worth investing in or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. So when we throw it over the wall, it should be a standard process.
Yeah.
So you're not just spinning your wheels forever.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because you do have to explore,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you have to hit your goals, or you have no money to explore.
Yeah.
And also, the customer success teams too also are saying, wait a minute, you want to go talk to my perfectly happy, growing customer about some new thing that might not work? It's like, no thanks, right? It's like, right? It's like, I remember at IBM, you'd have a customer that was worth 25 or $50 million a year, hardware, software, services, and they want to show you some brand new, when I was there, we were looking at USA Patriot Act, AML solutions. So it's like, hey, we want to sell this bank, this AML solution. Well, how much is that going to bring in? $150,000 a year. Like, pass, right? It's like, but wait, this is the future of the company. It's like, I don't care. My future is a happy customer, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want that. And it's tough. And that gets back to the revenue officer. Get a CRO, they should be able to make those decisions holistically without being stovepiped, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good another, bring us all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, for a customer, you're one team, and you need to act like that, whether it's an account executive or an account manager or a CSM, having those conversations with the customers. They ideally, from their perspective, you're one organization, you're selling them, a way to solve their problems. So, yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Well, so I have two final questions for you. So you got any fun, scrappy stories from your time in the trenches where a customer you almost lost, or you found a creative way to close the deal or retain them that our listeners might enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, if I think about that, I mean, most of the things that I remember are the negative outcomes, because they're so crazy. Like I had a deal in for signature, and the woman who was supposed to sign it fell off her horse and broke her shoulder and was out for like 6 weeks.
I shouldn't be laughing.
Another one, when I was in Boston, I threw a dinner for it was probably 8 or 10 C-suite folks from financial services in Boston. And we went to Abe and Louie's, which is in Back Bay, great restaurant, steak.
Love Abe and Louie's.
One of the people who was about to sign a deal with me, the valet crashed his like Mercedes, $150,000 Mercedes while he was trying to park it out in front of the restaurant.
Talk about terrible timing.
I mean, and in his defense, no names, I think he's retired, but he went ahead, I mean, he took it like a trooper, but you really can't make that kind of stuff up.
Yeah.
And actually that same person later, I was trying to close a deal. It was year end. He was in Martha's Vineyard. He flew into Boston by helicopter to sign a year end deal with me. That was back when you actually had to sign, no DocuSign and all the other crazy stuff they have now. Makes it a lot easier. But Why did he do that? It's about the relationship, right? If there was not a relationship there, if he didn't view me as being his partner, he wouldn't have done that. And the way I earned that with that particular person is I was in Las Vegas at a bachelor party. I got a call on a BlackBerry, so I'll let you know how long ago that was. And he said, my email system bank-wide is down. And I was the first call. Bachelor party's over. I'm in the room. I've got a SWAT team around IBM, and we fixed that problem for him. And that's how you build relationships, and that's how you earn trust, and that's how you get people on helicopters, is to get that done. And the other thing I used to do when I was direct sales is I'd have the most senior person at my account. I would go sit in their waiting room on the last day of the month, and I'd work out of their waiting room. And then they would look at me, they'd come out, look like, oh crap, he's still there. Hey, you want to go to lunch? All right, go to lunch. Hey, can you just sign this one last deal? Like, it just takes, it's the effort, right? Show up. Yeah. I know we're very, very virtual these days, but don't hesitate to go visit people. And you may have budget constraints. I'm not saying you should spend millions of dollars, but if you can, go visit people and take them to dinner and take them to, a ball game or whatever the case may be, or just go down there and say, can you give me a half a day to walk through what your process is? We call it like a side-by-side. I want to sit next to you and understand what your flow is, because I think I can fix it. That can go a long way, and you'll learn an awful lot about the business, whatever business you're in, if you do that.
Well, I'm booking my flight to Boston soon, and I want to grab lunch with you and hear more of these stories.
Excellent. I live on Cape Cod. It's a little bit south of Boston, but we'll work something out.
Yeah. I'll make my way to Cape Cod somehow. Don't worry.
Okay, fair enough.
Last question. So you've got revenue leaders and founders listening in, many of whom are earlier in their career. If you could go back in time and whisper one piece of advice to yourself at the beginning of your career, what would that be?
Yeah, so this happened to me. It wasn't a time machine. It was somebody else that whispered it to me. I was working for what is now Citibank in very early in my career, and the CEO of my group, I'm trying to remember his last name, Joe, said to me, having the humility to prepare gives you the confidence to execute. And not so long ago, I was at FIS and I was doing a presentation to a customer, and they said to me, thank you for coming in prepared. You were the most prepared person that has ever come in to talk to us.
I love that.
And then I thought, okay, what did I do? I read their annual report and I looked up everyone in the meeting on LinkedIn. That's it. That was the most prepared. People are not preparing. Your competition is not preparing. And now I can use ChatGPT. I can get a 20-page dossier on pretty much any company I want instantaneously. If you're not doing that, you're nuts. So prepare and go in with confidence. Be able to answer any question that comes up. But the downside is that if you have 100 data points, humans want to regurgitate those 100 data points. Don't. Listen, use the 2 or 3 that make sense. And you'll have them because you really have the whole 100 in your pocket. Right? So learn about your customers, about your markets, and then listen. Right?
I love that. Prepare.
Exactly right.
Thank you so much for bringing all your wisdom, your humor, and realness to this very first episode of Hold the Churn.
I appreciate it.
Where can folks follow your work or get in touch?
Most of it is on LinkedIn. So Terry Lee, Informed, based in Boston. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't really have there's no TikToks or Snaps, or I have younger kids who could probably teach me how to do that. But if I'm on social media, it's largely LinkedIn, and I'm there. Connect, happy to talk, things like that. No problem.
You got it, folks. Get in touch with Terry on LinkedIn if you want to hear more about his time in the trenches. Terry, thank you so much.
If you can teach me something, please.
Yes.
Please bring me something I don't know.
Yes. As Terry said, he's a lifelong learner. So thank you so much, Terry. It was an absolute blast. And I look forward to chatting more. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.